Scott Stern, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So you just gave a lecture about the role of innovation in economics. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Should innovation be a daily preoccupation of managers? Does it always ensure business value?
So that's two questions, and I'm going to take them separately. The first is that for an advanced economy, for European companies, the fact is that innovation is going to be the future basis of competitive advantage. Europe is not going to compete on costs. There's too much globalization going on. The way for European companies to create and then capture value is to be in a position to create more value for their consumers through new goods, new services, through innovation. To your second question, what was your second question? Right.
Does it always ensure?
Yeah, right. Innovation. So the answer to your second question, innovation is risky, and the fact is the one thing that I always worry about in the European context is the ability of French entrepreneurs to fail. Innovation is what very often fails, even in very successful times. So, for example, in the world of social networking today in the United States, where we're seeing a number of IPOs, there are many more companies that failed, even though Facebook and Twitter have been the successes. In areas like biotechnology, in areas like clean energy, all of these are going to involve a tremendous rate of failure. And that's what we need as an economy, is the ability to tolerate those failures in order to innovate to a better level of prosperity. What does that mean for an individual firm? It means that they have to tolerate failure and have enough capital and have enough resources and capacity to be able to make it to that, to be able to sustain the occasional failures and then ultimately create value for consumers.
Do you think that the new law, the new US law, encouraging more efficient patent processing can actually further stifle innovation, as some newspapers seem to assert it?
So, while there are some abuses of the patent system, and there are some abuses of the patent system, and there are some types of patents that we could probably still work on getting the policy right, the overall shift of the patent office towards a more efficient system, reducing delay times, fixing the fee structure, so on and so forth, is probably very good for innovation, for entrepreneurship, and the commercialization of new technologies. So, what? No. I'm a big. The question that, as I said before, there are certain kinds of patents that very often the industry or the user community don't really know how to deal with very often at the earliest stages of an emerging technology, and we need to be much more proactive in figuring out how to, quote unquote, learn to live with patents. In other words, even in very upstream academic research, it's not the intellectual property that's usually the problem. It's more often that people view it as a big transactions cost. People try all sorts of gaming rather than set up a kind of relatively standardized, relatively workable standardized licensing arrangement. So we've done a lot of work and research around that in a number of different contexts. And one of the things we've seen is that as was mentioned in the session, the alternative to the patent system is secrecy. And secrecy is an unbelievably bad system for innovation and ultimately leads to a not very dynamic economy. On the other hand, we have to make the patent system keep on making it better. And to be very honest, the work that we've done in the United States and some of the work that's being done in the EU to make the patent system more efficient given the current laws, that's got to be a good thing. If we want to invalidate certain classes of intellectual property, that's a second thing we could do. If we say that's an area that there shouldn't be patents, but we should certainly not make people wait 6 or 6. If people have a legal right to get their intellectual property and are only able to find a partner after they get a patent, we really shouldn't be making them wait 5 years to know what those rights are.
Do you think, well, the last question was actually, what kind of organizations should finance innovation? Do you think it should be public institutions or corporations?
Both. So there's a different role for the public and the private. And some of those are very standard distinctions that we talk about between obviously very basic research For many, many years, DARPA in the United States funded a general research program on communications technology that ultimately led to the internet. But of course, private companies do a very, very good job at figuring out how to figure out breakthrough ideas that immediately connect to very specific kinds of customer needs. When I think of the Google driverless car, that's an almost perfect example, grounded in the DARPA Grand Challenge. If you go back even in just 2004, 2005, those things couldn't go more than 100 yards. Now we basically have workable cars through a partnership, a complementarity between public and private investment.
Scott Stern, thank you very much.